You're a great nation on Saudi Arabia, country that's been very close and very helpful to us.
More than 80 years of close partnership between the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The U.S.-Saudi relationship has been a bedrock of security and prosperity. And we take the next steps to make our relationship closer, stronger, and more powerful than ever before.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one country that America fears. It's not Russia, it's not China. It is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. A welcome of pomp and ceremony for the Saudi prince.
We really have a great friendship, a great relationship.
The U.S. and Saudi Arabia have deep ties that go back decades. Saudi Arabia and the U.S. are connected by oil.
But do you realize? Saudi Arabia doesn't have a nuclear bomb. They don't have a manufacturing superpower like China, and they don't even have enough water. And if you think oil makes them powerful, think again. Iran, Venezuela, Libya, Iraq. All of them had oil, but while their economy was practically destroyed by America, the same America literally protects the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with its own army in 1990 when Saddam Hussein was about to attack Saudi Arabia. America literally sent 500,000 American soldiers to protect a desert kingdom. By the beginning of August 1990, President Saddam Hussein had been threatening for weeks to invade the small, oil-rich state of Kuwait. The Tower Kalma Republican Guard Division was deployed to fortify the country's border with Saudi Arabia. 5 days later, the United States initiated an operation. Desert Shield was launched. In fact, after the tragedy of 9/11, the world found out that 15 out of the 19 hijackers were Saudi citizens. But while the United States launched a decade-long war in Afghanistan and Iraq, the same American government practically did nothing and kept the oil flowing from Saudi Arabia. No sanctions and no invasions. Similarly, when Russia launched its brutal invasion of Ukraine, what did America do? They froze $300 billion of Russian sovereign wealth, kicked Russian banks off the global SWIFT payment system, and ruined their economy. They sent a clear message that if you start a devastating war, we will come and ruin your country.
U.S. Treasury Department has announced that it will freeze all assets of the Russian central bank held in America.
The United States announced sanctions against Russian oil companies. The economy is in turmoil.
The pressure on Russia and on Vladimir Putin is growing.
But what happened when Saudi rebel launched a military attack on Yemen? 377,000 people died due to bombs, starvation, and diseases. 21 million people were pushed into extreme need of humanitarian aid, and the UN called it the worst humanitarian crisis in the world.
The conflict has been going on for years,
causing mass food shortages.
Poverty is everywhere.
People there are struggling to meet their basic needs.
Thousands have been killed and millions have been displaced so far.
People are really dying for nothing.
But you know what US did nothing. In fact, America actually sold them the precision-guided bombs, provided targeting intelligence, and the US military literally flew mid-air to refuel Saudi fighter jets so that they could keep dropping bombs. So the question is, what is so special about this desert kingdom, like Saudi Arabia, that a nuclear superpower like America protects it when other oil countries like Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, Libya, all of them got invaded by the American army? Why does Saudi Arabia get a special treatment? With no water, no labor, no industrial base, and no nuclear weapon. How did Saudi Arabia manage to become so powerful? And what are the lessons that we need to learn from the power game of Saudi Arabia? This is a story that dates back to 1971, when America almost went bankrupt.
By 1971, U.S. debt had simply grown too high.
The government reports that wholesale prices rose 1.8% in October and indicates that inflation remains a serious problem.
For context, after World War II, 3 major things happened in the world economy. Number 1, as a regular subscriber, you already know that after World War, the US had 70% of the world's gold and all of the countries were in shambles. So in 1944, US got everyone together and said, listen guys, don't worry about having gold in your vault. You can use the US dollar for all your global transactions, and we promise you that for every $35 you get, we will give you an ounce of gold. That is how the entire world started using US dollars, because US dollar was as good as gold. Number 2, US started taking this trust for granted, and in the next 25 years, America did something shady. Now think about it. If the US has printed $10 billion, they need to have $10 billion worth of gold in their reserves, right? Because they've made a promise to the world that whenever somebody gets them $35, they will pay them with an ounce of gold. So they need to have enough gold to pay back all their partners, right? But you know what? America took this trust for granted and started printing so much money that by 1970, while central banks around the world had about $40 to $50 billion, the US vault only had $10 billion worth of physical gold. So do you realize this was a Ponzi scheme? If 3 countries came together to bring $12 billion US, would have had no gold to give them, and US would have gone bankrupt. So you know what the French president in 1965 started dumping US dollars and started getting gold in exchange from America? Because he couldn't trust the US dollar. What followed next was a disaster. Switzerland did the same, and finally in August 1971, Britain walked into the US Treasury and kept $3 billion in cash and asked for gold because they knew that US only had $10 billion of gold, and that is when Richard Nixon realized that America is about to go bankrupt. On the evening of the 15th of August 1971, Richard Nixon went on live television to announce,
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
And just like that, the US dollar went from being as good as gold to being backed by absolutely nothing. It was just a piece of paper. Now my question to you is, if the US dollar was worthless, why would US, Japan, France, or Britain not use your own currency to trade? Why the hell would you use the US dollar now? Back then, had countries all around the world dumped $60 billion in the US and demanded for something of value. US would have experienced hyperinflation and the American economy would have been destroyed, but the question is, why did it not happen? Well, that is because the greatest financial minds in Washington realized a fundamental truth about the modern industrial world. They realized that any country can survive without gold bars, but no country in the world can survive without oil, as Japan, Germany, Britain in the 1970s. You can run your country without gold, but you cannot run your factories, fuel your cargo ships, and heat your homes without oil. And guess who was sitting on the largest, cheapest, and the most profitable oil reserve on the planet? It was the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The oil kingdom, Saudi Arabia, the world's largest supplier of oil,
a kingdom the size of Western Europe, with a quarter of the world's known oil deposits.
So in 1974, the Treasury Secretary of the United States, William Simon, was sent on a secret mission to Jeddah to pitch the greatest deal of the century. In this deal, the United States offered the Saudi royal family something that no other country did: unconditional military protection and cutting-edge American weapons. And in exchange, the US demanded 2 critical conditions that would literally wreck the global economy for the next 50 years. The first condition was that Saudi Arabia had to price and sell every single drop of its oil strictly in US dollars. And secondly, Saudi Arabia had to take their billions of dollars in oil profits and invest them right back into US Treasury bonds. So in simple words, the same money had to be loaned back to the US government, which is why it's called petrodollar recycling, as in the dollar earned from petroleum got recycled back into the US economy. Now think about it, this was an absolute masterstroke. Even if Japan and France absolutely hated the American dollar, they were practically trapped. If Germany wanted Saudi oil to keep its auto factories running, they couldn't pay in marks, they had to buy the US dollar. But the question is, couldn't Japan and France simply go to Kuwait or UA? Well, guess what? Saudi Arabia was the leader of an oil cartel called the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which included Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, and UAE. So even if Japan, France, or Germany went to buy their oil from Kuwait or Iraq, they still had to pay in US dollars. This is how the dollar became the reserve currency of the world, and Saudi Arabia became America's biggest leverage. But you know what? This is only half the story. As we all know in geopolitics, there are no permanent friends or enemies. The US and Soviet Union practically fought the World War together, but after the war today, they've become arch enemies. Similarly, tomorrow, If oil became worthless, or if renewable energy becomes cheap, the US could abandon Saudi Arabia, and they know it. So Saudi Arabia did 3 incredible things to keep us in control. Firstly, Saudi used this leverage to buy their oil refineries after World War. American and British oil companies spent billions into building pipelines and infrastructure to extract oil from these countries. They built this infrastructure in Iran, Venezuela, Libya, Saudi Arabia, and several other countries. But you know what countries like Libya and Venezuela did? Their leaders in the race to become Robin Hoods? They sent their army, and they disrespectfully threw the American companies out because they thought without Americans they could run the factory and keep 100% of the profit.
Gaddafi nationalized the oil industry, creating the National Oil Corporation.
A few years later, Gaddafi was dead.
This is a momentous day in the history of Libya.
Another dictator that tried to sell oil for not dollars, which was Chavez, he threatened to do it.
Creo que han sido coronadas con esta joya, la victoria contra ExxonMobil.
This is the reason why American companies lost billions of dollars, and eventually the American government got angry and destroyed their nations. But when Saudi Arabia wanted their oil back, they didn't send an army, they sent a team of accountants. And these accountants did not treat us as an enemy to be defeated, they treated them as a business partner to be dealt with. And here's the genius 3-step deal that they struck with the United States of America. In 1973, the Saudi government walked into the boardroom and bought a 25% equity stake in Aramco from the American shareholders, and they apparently paid them $500 million. Then, during 1973, when the oil prices shot up by 300%, they made a lot of money. So they used that money in 1974 to buy another 35% equity and took their ownership to 60%, and then again in 1980, they paid cash for the remaining shares and took 100% ownership of the company. In total, the Saudi government paid the Americans about $1.5 to $2 billion. And to make the deal sweeter, you know what the king said? He said, "Look, even though we own the oil, you Americans are the best in the world at getting it out of the ground. So why don't you have the factory for us and make money with us?" That is how Saudi Arabia started paying billions of dollars in service fees to let the Americans run their factories. Now, if you look at it from the American perspective, you will see the genius of this deal. Number 1, the Americans got billions of dollars in cash up front. Number 2, they got billions of dollars in guaranteed risk-free service fees for every barrel of oil produced. And lastly, they got an endless guaranteed supply of crude oil to feed their global refineries and gas stations. Now look at the genius of this power lock. Saudi Arabia makes billions for oil companies. Oil companies then spend a chunk of their billions to fund elections in America. This keeps their favorite American politician in power, because of which American politicians deploy the US military to protect Saudi Arabia at all cost to keep the oil and the campaign donations flowing. So if any US president or senator ever tried to abandon Saudi Arabia, the most powerful corporate lobbies in America would instantly cut off their campaign funding and ruin their political careers. And lastly today, Saudi Arabia's power is woven into the fabric of the US economy. They hold $150 billion in US Treasury debt. They own the largest oil refinery in North America, which gives them the power to disrupt oil prices, and they hold $1 trillion in public investment fund, which holds massive stakes in Uber, Lucid, and Nintendo. That is how Saudi Arabia kept the ownership of its $27 trillion oil mine without going to war, used its oil to build leverage over the most powerful country in the world, and slowly and steadily used its financial muscle to own the pillars of the American economy. Eventually, Saudi Arabia became one of the safest and perhaps the most powerful country in the world. And this story teaches us one very, very important lesson. Aggression often destroys value, but when you orchestrate a win-win deal where your partner is incentivized to see you succeed, the deal becomes more powerful than weapons. And that is how you build leverage. And that is the story of Saudi Arabia. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button to let YouTube know that you watched something valuable. And to keep supporting our work, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.